So I just got done doing the introduction to this project, which if you haven't seen yet, definitely go and check out. It's not the greatest. I don't know why I'm, nervous for when I'm only watching, talking to myself. I'm sure it happens to everyone the first couple of times they're doing this, but we're just gonna jump into things. So let's go ahead and get started by, well, getting a model for what we're gonna make, an Octane, right? So how do we do that? Well, we're just gonna go ahead and just open it, right? That's pretty convenient. Boom, there we go. This is a mesh that's actually from the game. I'm not gonna go through the process of how to actually obtain models from Rocket League. So it's pretty neat. You can see all the surfaces from the mesh, the texture. If you open this in like Blender or something, you can put smooth corners on, and it actually looks like it does in game. We obviously don't have any wheels or tires here, but that's all right. I'm going to do a little bit of work later on here to look at that. But the first thing that's important, to at least to me in this project, is to get an idea of what sort of a size of things are we looking at. And so the only way I can really think about doing that is making a model to represent a person, a driver, and to put them in the car as they would be seated, and then use that to scale the rest of the dimensions, and then look at how long the total vehicle length is, the track length, the wheelbase, total height, those sort of parameters, because that's a lot of what's going to influence things later down the line. How feasible it is, and then what sort of options can you use when you're actually talking about parts for a vehicle. We're gonna create a sketch, and we are going to draw our person. So we'll give them a head, and then pretty much any major joint is what we're gonna look at next. That'll be our shoulder, and then hip, finally knee. I'm going to connect each of these for now. We'll give them, I guess, an arm. So there's our dummy. Now we got to figure out how big each of these are relative to each other, as well as to a, say to myself, a driver. So for that, I'm going to pull up Chrome. So I just looked up what average male body dimensions were, just kind of see how it compares. All of this appears to be in centimeters. So total height, let's see, 74 inches tall, which would be 6'2". Seems a little tall. Is that really what the average men's height is? Is this why making me feel self-conscious? Am I below average? Well, according to the CDC, the average height for an American 20-year-old is 5'9". So that makes me feel better about myself. 6'2" is a little taller than me. I'm just under 6 foot. I like to round that up for the ladies. We can use these dimensions for 6'2", because worst case scenario, that gives us just a little bit more clearance built into the design of this. What I'm gonna have to do is make all of the dimensions of our guy, which our guy needs a name. This guy is quite chiseled, and if we're making the side view of him, then I think we're gonna have to go with we'll go with Chad, our 6'2" specimen. So all the dimensions I'm gonna make here, if I put in that his head is X millimeters or centimeters tall, it's gonna be massive on this scale. But so long as I make all of the other dimensions relative to one dimension, according to the values listed here, then I can sort of use that to eventually scale the model up to what the person scale that we're using is. So question comes, which dimension to use? I think I'm going to go ahead and just use the back length, shoulders to hips, just that torso length there is 48.8 centimeters. That comes out to 19.2 inches. I'm like looking at this on myself to make sure it sounds about right. Actually, grab a tape measure real quick. So that looks close enough. It's a little difficult to tell exactly. I mean, all right. Let's see how big this messes it up. 19.2. Dang, Chad is quite the torso. All right. So for now, we'll say instead of 19.2, we'll go back to 0.14. Oh god, are we in meters? Oh no. Custom. The hell? There we go. All right. 5.5 inches. That's better. All right. Let's move on. This is going to take quite some time. Eventually, what we're going to want to do is be only able to change this 5.5 up to the 19.2 and then have everything else change with it rather than having to come back once the base model is scaled and changing everything else. We're going to multiply that by 5.5 and divide by 19.2 to scale it proportionally 3 inches. .66 inches. Is that right? Holy crap. That cannot be right. No, it's not right because there's no reason for me to take half of 40 here. I'm trying to think like, oh, I'm in the side view, so I've got to add this. But really, all of this dimension is not half of this. Plus that, it should just be 30.2 centimeters. That, or we got, what's, is it Siren Head, the telephone pole looking freak with the long arms? Yeah, that's who's driving our car right now. That should be better. 3.46. That's much better. I was like looking at it for a minute. I was like, either my elbow is supposed to go down to my waist, I'm just oddly deformed, or I did something very wrong. Pull Chad back up, and we are not going to do anything with the wrist. This will be the hand center, really. That's where you're grabbing the wheel. So I actually will take half of 21.1 here. Add that to 26.9. 14 inches. I'll keep using this tape measure. It is the center of my elbow to my hand, 14.7 inches. Just about. This is actually like really surprising for me how close it actually is. These dimensions are really freaking me out now because I'm like, is your forearm to hand really longer than your shoulder? Yep, all right. I feel like I'm like Khan Academy right now. I'm not playing Rocket League. What in God's name is that number? We're getting there. Let's do to the knee. And finally, we're gonna go all the way to the bottom of the foot. All right, it's not bad. Why did I choose that number? 5.5? Does it look good? Uh-oh. To be honest, that might be about right. You don't want to have this probably should be as close to vertical as possible. I'll leave it vertical for now. just for ergonomic reasons. There's no problem with this being angled some. I'm sure plenty of seats are, and I know, I don't know if I mentioned it here. I think it was in the introduction when I was talking about, you know, like Formula SAE. Like, we had a very reclined seating position, so that the total car length or height was actually under 40 inches, and so you almost actually sat like this. And the nice thing about this is that if I were to scale the rest of the car here, you would see that you can make it much smaller, yet fit the person comfortably. Personally, I don't think this is the most comfortable seating position, but I don't think this scale is actually too terrible looking. I mean, if you're looking at this as just the driver's cell, that's a little weird. Now, this is definitely subject to change, but just because I'm curious, let's see what this wheelbase corresponds to at the scale that we're already talking about. Gives us a wheelbase of 117 inches. Ooh, that's a little big. So for reference, our Formula SAE car was I believe it was a 60-inch wheelbase that we had, but we were looking at 5 feet for FSAE car and almost 10 here. Which, let me bring up a picture of an FSAE car just because it probably helps. That's better. The engine bay of these cars is, you can see the firewall shining through right there. That triangle pretty much is where your engine, transmission, drivetrain is all there, and then the rest of this is all front bulkhead pretty much ends here, and then this is impact structure at the front. Versus, if we compare that to our Octane, you can kind of see how much more lengthwise this distance is not that small triangle that would have ended about here scale wise. It's more than double. I mean, it's pretty much half the whole car's length, and so I could understand that this will probably have to be larger than that FSE 60 inches. I think 120 is a bit aggressive, a bit long, a bit big of a project. Just to put that in perspective, I'm gonna look up, take like a Civic or something, another common vehicle. Oh my. Yeah, the Civic Si with summer tires, wheelbase is 106 inches, and I just calculated ours to be 117, so we're 10 inches longer than a Civic. Okay, yes, that's a coupe, and I guess you've got a bench behind those seats, but they're not really a full row of seats, but probably seats 4 still, and we're talking about seating 1 maybe. Let's see if we can find a more realistic value to use here. And we're probably going to have to lay our dude out a little bit and use a little bit more of this front area, kind of an awkward seating position. But I think we can narrow this down. So at least we're smaller than a full-size American half-ton pickup. That's nice to know, I guess. Although it would be sick to make this thing like, maybe not a track car, but like a complete off-roader with these massive, shocks and wheel travel. You could really make quite the Baja terrain truck out of that. So what can we do? Let's think about this. Can we take this dimension first off? Say, see if this works equal to that dimension. All right. And then we're going to multiply it by the ratio between the two. Oh no. What did I do? Oh god. What? No. This dimension is going to be equal to this dimension times 3 divided by 5.5. The ratio between the two times the 1 should just yield that. It should just be 3. Hey, all right. So essentially what I can do is change, I'll update these other dimensions real quick. I'll change this dimension and it'll update every other one to keep it within the same scale and the same proportions. But it'll change the size of Chad to the vehicle, and that way our scale will no longer be from 5.5 to 19.2 being the actual. Based on that torso that we started out with, it'll be whatever I input to 19.2, and then that we'll use to change what this wheelbase is. So let's see what we can do here. First gonna finish updating all of these dimensions. God, I love putting formulas into there. It makes it so easy. Oh, I completely forgot to do the sort of diameters of all this. God, Chad is looking skinnier and skinnier, more like me and less like Chad. I mean, our boy here. Can't you see? Corporate wants you to tell the difference between these two images. They are very much different. This is got the Pixar mom dimension pack on it. This is why we need NASA. Tell me how big the average male butt is. I'm so skinny. But it's alright if you... I may look like this from the side, but when you turn me around, I look just like Chad here. But now that all of that is out of the way, we can work on what I said earlier, which was changing the scale to make it a little bit more manageable. If we make this, say 5.7 instead, ooh, about all the way to 6. Wow. Then already that wheelbase went from 117 down to 107. So we already lost 10 inches right there by just changing that, and we still have a good amount of room left. That's about right for Chad's head. Shoulder, can't do much about that. Where we do have kind of room left to work is whether this was, you know, straight up here, which, you know, I normally drive like this too. Preferably, I actually have my knees more like so. I find that to be the most relaxing position. Well, the nice thing is kind of about this is depending on where I pull which point, it's kind of nice because right now I'm only affecting that whole lower body, which is great because I pretty much have the head where I want it. Now I can pull this, however. Yeah, I don't know about this. This is a lot of space back here. That's a whole lot of nothing. I also have to figure out the wheel size. So let's do this actually. Let's get an idea how far off the ground we're going to be and how wide we're going to be too. Here we go. This is better. Here's sort of scaled up image I had. I was taking a look at, kind of about right size, and that was roughly 9.5 inches, which corresponded to 28 inches non-scaled diameter. Pulled the size for just the regular set of car tires, and that's where we're getting a 25-26 from. So there should be options available out there. So I'm pretty happy, I guess, with these dimensions. I meant to see what the track width is. So let's actually exit sketch, save this, and we're gonna do I believe the track widths are slightly different. Let me see what our scaled size comes out to. 67-inch track width there. Track width on a Focus is 61 inches. Same for the Civic. We're actually 6 inches more on the track width, even though we're a couple inches short on the wheelbase. I'm gonna wrap this up pretty soon. I'm gonna do a couple other things real quick with this, our scale size. I kind of like that 6.5 look on the side view. I think we're still a little big when it comes to the overall vehicle size, because again, you're talking a full-size Civic or Focus, which, I mean, those would be great to get hands on, get you a beater Civic that you can just swap everything from, but I think we could still accomplish that. That's still pretty reasonable there. That was at 7. You're really getting pretty inclined here. You're not going to want to sit in this for that long. That's going to start to feel. You got to make sure you got a seat that's going to support you. I mean, that's fairly close to a 45 then. But using that 7 is a lot better than what we started at 5.8 on the overall scale. And just like that, that's 92-inch wheelbase. That's already another 7 inches off between the wheels. And then I just want to take a second to clarify some of the things I've been talking about in this video. The dimension that we've been working on with the torso isn't actually changing the size of Chad. Really changing is the scale of the car around that individual that is a constant size. Problem is that it's a lot more difficult to re-import the model with a scale on it and then draw the sketch back in each time we change something. Whereas here, I can change Chad torso and from that scale the car around him and generate a different set of values to compare. So one of the things I went ahead and did off stream was change this value incrementally and then make a table for all the different properties that resulted in. So you can see that as Chad gets bigger, aka Chad is larger relative to the car. If Chad stays the same size, then the car is getting smaller around him and feel larger. So the wheelbase is decreasing, the front track, rear track, same thing. Tire size getting a little smaller. These are all still reasonable values for options out there. Total height, a fairly large difference there. Biggest difference probably in seat angle. You get up to 8 where your foot is basically up against the nose of the vehicle. It's almost fully reclined, and that's something that I don't think we're going to be able to move forward with. But the 7.25 that I have in here right now, it's sort of dead center area I was looking at, and I think that's going to be a good potential spot project to be in. You can see in the bottom side of that table just some other comparisons I did to an F-150 standard sedan that we've been looking at, a smart car, then also a like a side-by-side, some of the dimensions there. And we're not far off a lot of those still. And I think that we're going to be able to use a lot of components off of either a single vehicle or a couple of vehicles combined to make up the powertrain, drivetrain, suspension, and electrical systems project. So I think this is the scale that I'm most happy with, and I think I'm gonna move forward with in the meantime. But for the time being, I think this is a good break point for me. I know not a lot's happened in the grand scheme of things. It takes a little while, but at least with having a general idea for the scale, I think we're pretty darn good. that'll wrap it up for today, and we'll get back to this here shortly and hopefully get progressing on this a little bit more. Thanks for watching.